Hi AGP students, this is Rob Jensen, one of your SAT test prep instructors. Welcome and thank you for listening to today's video. Today we're discussing target scores for the PSAT and the SAT. So we're going to go through and discuss some of that, and for us this is a big priority to this course. Something that we want to make sure that the student is well informed on and how to utilize and accurately and effectively implement this strategy. Also, we want to make sure that you're well prepared and trying to use this, just as well as we want to make sure that you're being very intentional with the test that you're taking, and that you have a game plan that's been put into place to help you achieve your desired target scores that you want to achieve for your higher education endeavors. So one of the things you kind of do with this is you'll have excuse me, kind of self-examine and understand what you do well, what your potential is, and what are some of your limitations. So with that, we'll come through as you continue to go through the course and kind of better understand which sort of strategies and concepts in which you really do well and work well with, and others that you kind of struggle with and such. Also, this will kind of help you to better manage your time. The SAT is extremely different from normal tests in which you take and accustomed to while you're in high school, and the test taking and the time management portion is a bit different, and this will help you with that. Also, we believe that by having some targeted scores and game plan in place, this will help and do well to alleviate the stress that comes along with taking the test with many students, and will help you to better understand it and how to navigate during your test taking times with a test. So in this video that you're watching today, we'll discuss what target scores are. You're probably asking yourself, what are these and what do they mean to me? You'll also understand the basketball analogy in which we use, which I think does very well in trying to elaborate a certain skill in which we're trying to introduce in taking the SATs and such. And then also create a game plan. So that's something in which you won't necessarily do today, but in our own individual sessions in which we'll create a game plan that is fitting to what you would like to achieve, and that helps you to meet your college aspiration goals. So once again, target scores. Target scores are specific to your test proficiency and such. And what I mean by that is, how well do you do in the math? How well do you do in the critical reading? How well do you do in the writing sections? Obviously, with each individual, there's going to be one or two that you tend to do quite well with, and then another one or two in which you tend to struggle with in some ways. So with that, you shouldn't have the same target score for each one of them, and that's cumulative will end up being a difference, give you your score and what you're trying to achieve. So for instance, your target score for math may be 700, while you may be not as proficient in the other two areas, and it may be a 6 or 650 or something what you're shooting for. The other thing is, as you're increasing your target score, the more skillful you are in taking the test, which means one of the biggest tips is that you'll skip questions. And the more skillful you are, the fewer questions in which you will skip and such. Another thing about this, as I mentioned a bit earlier, was that because of these skips, and that you're not trying to answer every question, because it's not in your favor to do so, which I will show you in a moment why, you will have a bit more time to answer the questions and things. So with that, allow you a little bit more time to kind of navigate and to manage each section a bit more effectively, and because of that, you'll have a little bit more time to work through the problems and such. As I also mentioned, kind of understand your strengths and weaknesses, understanding which sections you tend to do well with, understanding within those sections the type of questions in which you do well with and some that you struggle with. And those are extremely important because, as I mentioned to a couple bullet points earlier that the goal is that you will be allowed to take a certain number of skips, and you're going to want to use those very wisely on the sort of questions that you know that you struggle with. Lastly, by implementing the strategy and such with the target scores and the skips and things, you should be able to increase your score by effectively doing so. You should see that your score is probably going up at least 1, if not 2, maybe as many as 3 raw points. And with that should translate into somewhere between, if you're looking at the math of critical reading, 40 to 60 points, or if you're looking for the total score, somewhere between 60 to 90 and such. So that's not a lot of points, but when you sort of accumulate that and add that to, and then you also build in by what you're doing to increase your knowledge of the test and the strategies and working on the skills and such, it can add up to quite a bit and really help you very well in giving you that edge to get over those sort of benchmarks that you're looking to achieve. Alright, now let's play a little game with this and such, and I think this will do really well to kind of illustrate the SAT and how different the SAT is compared to other tests in which you're accustomed to taking. So with this game, I'm going to give you 25 shots, and with that, with each shot that you make, I will give you $100. I know that sounds fabulous and such, and like, whoa, man. And you're thinking like how much money you can possibly make and get right and everything, and what you can do with that money and such. And with that, you have 1 minute to take those 25 shots. So naturally, you're probably going to be going a little bit quicker than what you'd like. You may not be so concerned about where you're at in the court and things. And you're just concerned about getting all 25 shots in, because of course, why wouldn't you? You're not penalized by any means by taking all 25 shots. So you want to shoot as many as you possibly can, potentially earn as much money as you can. So here we go. Here's our half court, and I've given you your ball. And with that, go ahead and start shooting your shots. There you go. Shooting, yeah, shooting your shots. You see that? You see that you're making them and everything, and you're not someone who practices a whole lot and such. And with that, like I said, you're not someone who might practice a whole lot. Actually in the NBA, over 50% is actually pretty good. So with that, you made 12, you missed 13 of those. $1,200, that's not a bad payday by any means for 1 minute's worth of work. So I would be extremely happy with that kind of pay and such. But as you can see, you're just going around 1 minute, chunking up basketball. I'm not concerned about where you are and such, just picking it off the rim and putting it back up and things. So we'll throw in here the SAT twist, and with that, it is much similar to what you just had to do, but this time you're going to lose $25 per shot that you miss with this game. Okay, so let's give it another go. Here's look at our basketball court. I'm giving you the ball, and here we go. Shooting baskets, everything all over again. Shooting, boom, 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 boom. All right. So the results of this one, same as last time. You made 12, you missed 13, which then took $425 off, and so the total of dollars you earned was $775. So that's a pretty good chunk. For missing 13 shots, you missed essentially a third of the points or a third of the dollars in which you would have had in a way because of that and such. So you can see the sort of penalty by throwing in with the SAT, and if you're just going through and you're answering all the questions and such, you're not being as careful or strategic about the ones in which you're choosing to answer and things, how that can really penalize you in a way and bring your score down quite heavily and such. So let's try this again and let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. Oh, another one and another one. So here in this particular example, you see that this individual decided, you know what? I'm not going to take these last 4 shots, I'm happy with where I'm at, and I'm just going to sit on the progress and the achievements that I've made to this point. So you can see here, this individual made 12 shots. They missed 9. So you can see that took $225 away, and they admitted 4, which by admitting those, there's no penalty to not answering the questions in which that are on the test. But by not taking those last 4 shots, you can see that they earned $975 this time. So with that, net gain $200, essentially 2 raw points on the SAT, or you can say an additional 20 to 40 points within that one section. Within that one section of work, that individual would have potentially made by admitting those 4 questions and such. So as I mentioned, that's not a lot of points and things, but if you take those points, you add them to becoming more proficient, more skillful, and the concepts and the strategies and things, and adding that on, you can easily see anywhere from 80, 90, 100 point increase within an individual section, which is what we're shooting for and such. And by stacking those on, it's quite easily attainable for one to do so. So what we have here is a sample game plans. So in which you can see there's one for the 600 target score, one for the 650 target score, and you can see that the it's broken up over here with section the total questions. So you can see the critical reading and the 67 questions that they have, math 54, writing 49, and what you're trying to do is we're trying to get to 600 here with this sort of bracket or this sort of spreadsheet that we have here. And you see the number target raw score which we must achieve. So with the critical reading, we're trying to get to a 46. And what we have here is we need to answer 58 of those questions of the 67, which will then let us see that we're answering 87% of the questions, that we're skipping 9, so we're roughly skipping about 15%, 16% of the questions there. And with that, you can skip 3 per section, and then miss 9 of those, another 16%, and that will give you the raw score that you need to achieve a 600 at a minimum. So this is something to just kind of keep in mind, and that as I mentioned earlier, the critical reading and the writing may be different as opposed to math. Maybe you're better with the math, and it may be the 650. You do not see here listed, there is a 700 target score that'll be in your curriculum that you will see, but this is to give you a sample of what to expect and how we'll tend to go over that and such. So the idea is that you'll be assigned to say, I'm going to skip this number per section or this number per section. And the reasoning behind that is because with the SAT, you're going to have a certain number of sections to answer. And with that, there may be an additional section that's tied thrown into the test. So for instance, you may be given a 4th math section, which only 3 of those 4 will be graded, and the other one is for giving some sample questions that may go on future tests and such that they're testing out with the students at that time. So, if I tell you you need to skip 9, well, that's not 9 over those 4 sections and such. That would be too few in a way. So skipping 3 per section will keep you on track and will allow you to obtain the sort of score that you need to obtain in things. So as you can see here, as you're trying to achieve a higher target score, there are fewer skips, and there's also fewer missed questions. So this is going to determine a lot here, the percentage of the questions that you're missing, the sort of target score that you end up achieving. So if you're going for the 700, which is not listed, those individuals are typically missing 4 to 5% of the questions and things. So that's something that we'll look at very closely and kind of monitor through your practice test. So lastly, the game plan. So you have target scores. So that maybe math is, 600 or 650. Critical reading is a 650 or 700. So those are your target scores. And the game plan is going to be the culmination of those three. So as I mentioned before, math may have a certain score such as 650, critical reading may be 650, and writing may be 600 and such. And within those individual sections, you'll be allotted so many questions in which you can skip per section, which is easier to keep track of in some ways, to be more conscious of when you're actually taking the test. So this game plan is going to be based upon initial results and expected gains. Something in which, what we do in administering the practice test is, we closely monitor this and how well you're implementing this game plan, because that is the time in which you want to practice those skills. And with that practice, the more comfortable you'll become with it, the more proficient that you'll be with it, and when it becomes test time on the actual day, you'll be able to execute the game plan as you so practice and such. And as I mentioned, you want to practice, you want to implement these with the remaining tests, practice tests in which you take within the course, those that you take on your own and such, is and something that you want to necessarily practice and practice and practice. So in today's video, as we mentioned, you should have learned what target scores are and how they pertain to you. You should understand the basketball analogy, the one in which we went over. And lastly, create a game plan. So something in which we'll do when the time becomes appropriate in class, we'll look at your practice test and together formulate a game plan that we feel is well suited for you. And with that, have something in which we can work on in the future with practice tests. So thank you so much. I hope you learned a great deal from today's video, and we'll see you in class. Thanks.